Hey, I'm Todd Newton. Always good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. We're here at the Dayton, Ohio airport. There's a lot of action happening behind the camera here. You know, one of the keys to a fulfilling travel experience, whether you're exploring your home state, going cross country, or going around the world, is maximizing every moment, every hour, every day, every week, seeing as much as you possibly can. And I have a short 3-hour layover here in Dayton, Ohio. So I want to take you to the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. We are going to go inside, get a special tour of an airplane that has played a significant role in our country's history. It's going to be great. Welcome to the Tattooed Traveler. Located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here in Ohio, this museum is the world's largest and oldest military aviation museum. And I love the fact that admission is free, parking is free, and each year more than 800,000 visitors come here to learn about the mission, the history, and the evolving capabilities of America's Air Force. You'll see it all here. A lot of historical pieces. Might as well start there. The evolution of military flight from the Wright Brothers, Ohio heroes. In the summer of 1903, the brothers built a 40-foot, 4-inch span airplane, and they flipped a coin to see who would be the first to try it out. Wilbur won that toss. Oh, this is actual fabric from that aircraft. Wilbur won the toss, but he overcorrected the elevator control, and the airplane crashed. So a few days later, after the brothers fixed it back up with the help of their mechanic, Charlie Taylor, Orville flew it successfully for the very first time. There really is so much to see and so much to learn here. There are volunteers stationed throughout all 4 of the museum's buildings. They're very helpful. Seems like they utilize every square foot here. More than 350 aerospace vehicles and missiles, thousands of artifacts. There are galleries for early aviation, a gallery for World War II, for the Korean War, the Cold War. They do a lot of restorations here as well. And in addition to the Presidential Gallery, which we're making our way towards, and the SAM 26,000, the retired Air Force One aircraft, I was really excited to see this. Up close, the Memphis Belle. Man, this is straight out of my elementary school history books. The Memphis Belle is a Boeing B-17 flying fortress the Memphis Belle that flew in every combat zone during World War II. Everyone, most significantly over Europe. And this aircraft that we're standing underneath right now was pretty much the backbone of the Air Force's strategic bombing force. And it helped win World War II, just crippled Germany. She's designed for high-altitude flight, for speed, for heavy defensive armament, pretty much anything that keeps enemy defenses at bay. And with these advanced supercharged engines, she could fly up to about 30,000 feet with a full combat load. I'm just reading some of the signs here. She held a crew of 10. She had a flight range of 2,800 miles, a maximum speed of 325 miles per hour. That crew of 10 was led by Captain Robert Morgan, and the ages of the crew members ranged from 19 years old to 26 years old. And when the war was over and they came back to the States, the crew members and this aircraft, you want to talk about celebrity status. Wow. 25 successful missions those young men flew, those heroes, and they came from all over the country. Washington State, Connecticut, Texas, Indiana. But contrary to popular myth, the guys flew most, but not all of those 25 missions together. This aircraft has really become a symbol of American bravery and heroism during World War II. She flew home back to the U.S. in June of 1943, and the crew, whose photo you saw earlier, flew the aircraft across the country on a 3-month war bond and morale boosting tour. And this was an opportunity for men and women, boys and girls, to come out and salute these heroes and get up close and personal to the Memphis Belle, to the plane that won this war for our country. And you and I right now are closer than any of them could have ever hoped to get. This is great. And the artwork for Memphis Belle. If you're a tattoo aficionado like I am, you're thinking, that would make a great forearm piece. Traditional pinup girl tattoo art. Love it. You know, I don't think any visitor to the museum leaves here without thinking to themselves, I wish I could fly one of those planes. Well, the National Museum of the United States Air Force offers a free introductory level course, Intro to Pilot 101, and then another Complex Aircraft 201. And they're not substitution for courses. They don't provide any certifications, but they are intended to give you an idea of what actual flight school could be like. And again, it's free. So if you're interested in that, they have all the info here at the museum. And as we move into Building 4 now, obviously more incredible aircrafts for you to get right up close to. And here are some of the missiles that I told you about earlier. The Presidential Gallery here in Building 4 also contains an Aero Commander U-4B, a Lockheed VC-121E, Columbine 3, just some that you might want to take note of and take photos of. But it's an exhibit called Flying the President that I wanted to share with you. Now, the designation for the U.S. Air Force aircraft carrying the president was established in 1953 when a commercial airline crossed paths with Air Force 8610, which was carrying President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The designation became official in 1962, and Air Force One is a call sign that applies to any aircraft of the U.S. Air Force that is carrying a president of the United States. These planes, as I'm sure you've read or seen, are equipped with classified security and defense systems, including measures to protect onboard electronics against a nuclear explosion. The crew can consist of up to 26 individuals. I'm excited to see inside this plane. Again, this is we'll call it a retired Air Force One, but many of today's Air Force One aircrafts have an in-flight pharmacy, emergency medical equipment, a couple of galleys where they can serve up to 100 meals. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and guess that the snacks that they serve on Air Force One are probably a little more delectable and extravagant than the bag of peanuts and pretzels that I had earlier today. But here is the flight attendant's layout and where he or she would take the president's orders. And up and down the aisles of Air Force One, they push beverage carts that pretty much look like the ones you and I see on the planes that we fly in. But let me see if I can get in this. Do these open? Yeah. So yeah, you can see the coffee mugs are a little fancier. Whiskey glasses. What's in here? We have Splenda. I like Splenda. Some hot sauce. This is neat. Over here, some things from presidential flights. Cigarettes from Jimmy Carter's flight. He smoked? I didn't know Jimmy Carter smoked. Lyndon B. Johnson cigarettes. I can believe that he smoked. JFK's cigar box. These are great collectibles. What a collection. What's over here? Dinnerware, glasses from the Obama administration and Trump administration. A couple of pieces from the Clinton administration. They loved playing cards. A lot of presidents had playing cards. You would think they'd be pretty busy. But I guess there's always time for relaxation and recharging the batteries. There's a menu. Oh, now that's a menu. See, that's much more enticing than chicken or beef. And a seatbelt. That's cool. Ronald Reagan's actual seatbelt. And again, let me point out, it doesn't cost a dime to come in and just explore through this museum. This is a perfect way, oh, that's neat, to spend an afternoon. All right, let's head on over to the plane, and we get to climb the actual staircase that we see on all the news clippings and online everywhere. And there are so many videos on social media of presidents falling up those stairs. I think they've all tripped a time or two. Luckily, there's no one around here, so if I do stumble, you'll be the only one who knows it. I have to say, I talk a lot on this show about the thrill of doing things that you never thought you would get to do. This would be one of those things, going inside an actual Air Force One. The two aircraft that serve as Air Force One currently are housed and maintained at Andrews Air Force Base, which is just 10 miles southeast of the White House. And there are 80 pilots employed to serve Air Force One and 89 flight attendants who are handpicked for this mission from a great big Air Force pool. The communication facility so that the president could be in contact with the White House or just about any other part of the world. Very narrow hallway. My shoulders are touching both sides here. It's very difficult not to touch the aircraft. Okay. And then I guess this would allow for members of the press to be seated if the president was speaking. Oh, these are covered storage boxes that contain sheets and other things that they would need on the flight. So the Kennedy years, the Nixon years, Kennedy's conference room are just ahead of us here. The president's private quarters, office to the right. A little restroom back there. This room was used primarily during the Lyndon B. Johnson administration. He refurbished the aircraft in 1964, installed plexiglass around the office, and ordered the forward seats changed to face the rear of the aircraft so he could see everyone on board. He also had a desk installed that he could raise or lower. Feels like we're about halfway through the cabin here. This area was used for the presidential staff, and during the Kennedy administration, his conference room would have been in this area. And after the death of President Kennedy in November of '63, this is where LBJ was sworn in as president. This area was used primarily for the president's security team. Yeah, JFK was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, a little before my time, in Dallas, Texas. In another one of our Tattooed Traveler episodes, we visit the Ford Museum in Michigan, and we see the actual limousine that he was riding in when he was shot. Being on this plane is almost equally as somber, as you can see there. This was the plane on which they loaded JFK's casket to transport his body back to Washington, D.C., and the flight crew removed this row of seats as well as this row. So 4 seats in total, 2 rows to make room for that casket. Hard to believe we're standing right here. This aircraft was put into service in 1962 during JFK's administration and was finally retired in 1998. And it is on display for you to see here at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. Now, let me touch on just a little more history here because you can't come to Dayton without seeing the Wright brothers everywhere. Wilbur was born here in 1867 and his brother Orville in 1871. And although their first successful flight took place in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, it took them a few years to make that happen. They were born here in Dayton, right here. This is the actual site of the Wright brothers' home. The house itself was purchased by Henry Ford, of all people, in 1936 and moved to the Henry Ford Museum I mentioned earlier, just outside of Detroit. This is pretty wild because this is just a residential street. Like there are houses with families in them up and down the block, cars parked on either side of the street. Now, if we go inside the gate here, you can see an outline of all of the rooms of the house. It's kind of hard to tell what's what. That was probably a bedroom, and this was probably a parlor or living room. Orville Wright was born right here, and Wilbur Wright died in this home. But most notably, it was on this grassy lot that we're standing on that the Wright brothers began their pursuit of flight. Now that's how you spend a layover, huh? I mean, think about it. We had a few hours to kill. About $20 in Uber rides got us to the National Museum of the United States Air Force. We got to walk through the retired Air Force One that belonged to Kennedy and Johnson and Reagan and Carter and Nixon. And then we ended up here, where the famous Wright brothers actually lived. This was their home. And now we've still got about an hour before the flight takes off. Thank you for spending this time with me. It's always great hitting up these adventures with you. Make sure you grab your brand new Tattooed Traveler hoodie or t-shirt or coffee mug or luggage tag. We've got them for you right now at thetattooedtraveler.com. And until we meet again a little further down the road, I'm Todd Newton from Dayton, Ohio. Travel safely.